The space station slowly turned in the darkness, its metal sides covered with black marks from enemy fire. Commander Jake Morrison stood by the big window, watching the alien ships move around them like hungry sharks. The blue lights on the enemy vessels pulsed in the black of space, getting brighter and dimmer over and over again. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept for 2 days. None of them had slept much since the attack began 3 weeks ago. The Zephyrian fleet had come out of nowhere, dropping out of hyperspace like deadly ghosts. Now they sat outside Kepler Station, waiting and watching. "Commander Morrison, sir." The voice made Jake turn around. Dr. Lisa Campbell walked toward him, her white coat dirty and torn. She carried a small computer tablet that showed red warning lights all over its screen. Lisa had been the head scientist on the station before the war started. Now she helped run what was left of their defenses. "What is it, Lisa?" Jake asked. He already knew it would be bad news. All the news was bad now. "We lost shield generator number 4 about an hour ago," Lisa said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "The Zephyrians hit it with some kind of focused energy beam. Our people tried to fix it, but the damage is too much." Jake looked at the tablet she handed him. The station's defense system looked like a body that was slowly bleeding to death. Red marks showed where their weapons had been destroyed. Yellow warnings flashed where their shields were failing. Only 2 of their original 8 shield generators still worked. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. Lisa bit her lip before answering. "Maybe 18 hours before they can break through completely. After that?" She did not need to finish the sentence. Jake nodded and looked back out the window. The Zephyrian ships moved in perfect patterns around the station. They were not in a hurry. They knew time was on their side. The aliens had been fighting wars in space for hundreds of years. They were good at waiting for their enemies to make mistakes. "Sir, I have been trying the radio again." "Communications." Officer Danny Brooks called from across the room. Danny was young, maybe 22 years old. He had joined the station crew just 6 months ago to learn about deep space communication. Now he was their only link to the outside world. "Any luck reaching Fleet Command?" Jake walked over to Danny's station. The young man's desk was covered with different radio equipment, some of it taken from broken systems around the station. "No, sir," Danny said, shaking his head. "The Zephyrians are blocking everything. Every time I try to send a message, their ships jam the signal. I cannot even get our emergency beacon to work properly." Jake put his hand on Danny's shoulder. "Keep trying. Someone out there needs to know what happened here." The station was home to almost 2,000 people. Most of them were not soldiers. They were scientists like Lisa, engineers, computer experts, and their families. They had come to study the special minerals in this star system. The rocks here contained elements that could not be found anywhere else in human space. These minerals were important for building faster spaceship engines. When the war with the Zephyrians started, Kepler Station was forgotten. The main human fleet was fighting big battles closer to Earth. Nobody had time to think about a research station at the EWAO, edge of human space. The people here were on their own. Jake walked through the station's hallways. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. The air recycling system made strange noises because of battle damage. People moved quietly through the corridors, trying to stay calm. Children stayed close to their parents. Everyone knew they were in danger, but they tried to act normal. In the engineering section, Jake found Chief Engineer Carl Thompson working on a damaged power relay. Carl was an older man with gray hair and hands that were always dirty from fixing machines. He had worked on space stations for 30 years. "How are we doing, Carl?" Jake asked. Carl wiped sweat from his face with a dirty rag. "Not good, Commander. The power grid is holding together with spare parts and hope. Every time those alien ships hit us, something else breaks. My people are working around the clock, but we are running out of things to fix problems with." "What do you need most?" "Time," Carl said simply. "And about 50 more engineers. And maybe a miracle." Jake left Carl to his work and continued through the station. In the medical bay, Dr. Susan Martinez was treating people hurt in the attacks. Most of the injuries were minor: cuts from flying glass, burns from electrical fires, broken bones from people falling when the station shook under. Enemy fire. Dr. Martinez, how are our supplies? Jake asked. Susan looked up from bandaging a young engineer's arm. We have enough medicine for now, but if this keeps going much longer. She did not finish, but Jake understood. If the fighting continued, they would run out of everything. In the cafeteria, families sat together at long tables. The adults spoke in quiet voices while children played with toys and drew pictures. Jake noticed that many of the pictures showed spaceships and stars. Some showed Earth, the home planet that most of these children had never seen. A little girl with brown hair ran up to Jake. Mr. Commander, when are the good spaceships coming to help us? Jake knelt down to look at her face to face. What is your name? Amy, the girl said. My daddy works with the computers. Well, Amy, the good spaceships are very far away right now, but we are going to take care of everyone here until help comes. Amy smiled and ran back to her parents. Jake stood up slowly. He had lied to the little girl. No help was coming. The human fleet did not even know Kepler Station was under attack. Back on the command deck, Jake looked at the tactical display. It showed the enemy ships in detail. There were 12 Zephyrian vessels in total, 6 cruisers, 4 destroyers, and 2 large battleships. Their crystalline hulls looked like giant blue jewels floating in space. Each ship was bigger and more powerful than anything the humans had at the station. Commander, Lisa said, walking up behind him. I have been thinking about our situation. Go ahead. The Zephyrians could have destroyed us on the first day if they wanted to, but they are keeping us alive. They want something. Jake had thought about this too. The mineral samples. They know we have been mining here for 2 years. They want our research data. That would make sense. If they can learn how to use these minerals, their spaceships could become much faster. It would give them a big advantage in the war. So, they are waiting for us to give up, Jake said. They think we will surrender when we get desperate enough. Lisa nodded. But if they realize we will never give up, they might decide to destroy the station and look for the minerals themselves. Outside the window, one of the Zephyrian battleships moved closer to the station. Its hull was covered with strange symbols that glowed with blue light. Weapon ports opened along its sides like the eyes of some giant beast. All hands to battle stations, Jake announced over the station's communication system. This is not a drill. People throughout the station moved quickly to their assigned positions. Scientists became gunners. Engineers became damage control teams. Even some of the older children helped by carrying messages and supplies. The Zephyrian ship fired a single blast of energy at the station's main shield. The barrier flashed bright white as it absorbed the attack, then flickered and went out. Warning alarms began to sound. Shield generator number 2 is offline, Danny reported. Jake watched the enemy ship pull back to its waiting position. It had been a test, a reminder that the aliens could end this anytime they chose. Now Kepler Station had only 1 shield generator left. Sir, Danny said quietly. I got a message out. Just a few words before they jammed it again. What did you send? Kepler Station under attack, 2,000 people, no help coming. If anyone hears this, remember us. Jake nodded. It was not much, but it was something. Maybe somewhere in the galaxy, someone would hear their last message and know that they had not given up without a fight. The enemy ships continued their slow circle around the station. They had all the time in the universe. The humans inside had less than 18 hours before their last defenses failed. But Jake Morrison was not ready to surrender. Neither were the 2,000 souls under his protection. They would fight until the end, alone in the darkness of space, hoping against hope that somehow, somewhere, help would come. Captain Amy Rodriguez sat in her command chair aboard the exploration ship Wanderer, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. Her ship was small compared to the big warships fighting the Zephyrians, but it was fast and quiet. The Wanderer had been built to explore new star systems and search for planets where humans could live. For the past 3 months, Amy and her crew had been mapping the outer edges of human space. It was lonely work, far from the big battles happening closer to Earth. But someone had to do it. The war would end someday and humanity would need new places to grow. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Pete Johnson from his sensor station. Pete was the ship's communications and sensor expert. He had ears that could pick up radio signals from halfway across the galaxy. Amy looked over at him. "What kind of strange?" Pete adjusted his equipment, frowning at the displays. "It is very weak, but I think it might be human. The signal is bouncing around, getting weaker each time, like an echo that has been traveling for weeks." Amy got up and walked over to Pete's station. The sensor screen showed waves of energy moving through space. Most of it was just background noise from stars and planets. But there was something else there, hidden in all the static. "Can you clean it up?" Amy asked. Pete worked at his controls for several minutes. Slowly, the noise began to fade away. What was left made Amy's heart stop. "Kepler station under attack. 2,000 people. No help coming. If anyone hears this, remember us." The message was so faint that Amy had to strain to hear it, but the words were clear enough. Somewhere out there, humans were dying, and nobody knew about it. "Where did this come from?" Amy asked. Pete ran the signal through his computers. "Based on the way it bounced off asteroids and gas clouds, I think it came from the Kepler system. That is about 40 light-years from here." Amy knew about Kepler Station. It was a research base that studied rare minerals, the kind of place that was important but easy to forget during a war. "How old is this message?" "Hard to say exactly. Maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month. It has been bouncing around space all this time." Amy stared at the message on Pete's screen. 2,000 people. That was more than lived in most small towns. And they were trapped, probably dying while the human fleet fought battles somewhere else. "Plot a course for the Kepler system," Amy ordered. Her crew looked at each other with worried faces. Engineer Carl Thompson spoke up first. "Captain, we are just an exploration ship. We have no weapons except a few small defense guns. What can we do against whoever is attacking that station?" Amy was already moving toward the ship's communication system. "We cannot fight them, Carl. But we can do something else. We can make sure people know what is happening." She sat down at the communication station and began typing a message. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she wrote the most important message of her life. "Priority alert to all human fleet commands and vessels. Kepler station under siege by unknown forces. Approximately 2,000 civilians trapped. Station location follows." This message recorded from fragmentary distress call. Repeat, 2,000 human souls need immediate assistance. Amy looked at the message one more time, then sent it out on every frequency the Wanderer could reach. The radio waves would spread across human space at the speed of light, reaching every ship, every base, every planet in the network. "Navigation. How long to reach Kepler?" Amy asked. Navigation Officer Linda White ran the numbers on her computer. "At maximum hyperspace speed, about 18 hours. Take us there, full speed." The Wanderer jumped into hyperspace, its engines pushing as hard as they could. Behind them, Amy's message began spreading through human space like ripples on a pond. On the battleship Defiance, Admiral Karen White was studying battle reports when her communication officer handed her Amy's message. Karen read it twice, her face getting harder each time. "Get me a connection to Fleet Command," she ordered. "Admiral, they are going to say Kepler is not strategically important," her aide warned. 2,000 people makes it important to me," Karen replied. At the mining station on Titan, Captain Steve Parker received the message while loading supplies for his heavy cruiser Thunder. He immediately changed his ship's destination and began calling other captains he knew. On the merchant ship Lucky Star, Captain Bill Turner was carrying farm equipment to a colony world when the message reached him. He called his crew together in the ship's main room. "We have a choice," Bill told them. "We can deliver this cargo on schedule, or we can help rescue 2,000 people." His crew did not need to think about it. "Change course, Captain," said his chief engineer. "The farming equipment can wait." Across human space, the reaction was the same. Military ships changed their orders. Merchant vessels abandoned their cargo runs. Even small private ships began heading toward the Kepler system. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell commanded a fast attack ship called Spearhead. His vessel was designed to hit enemy ships quickly and run away before they could fight back. When he got Amy's message, he was patrolling a quiet sector where nothing ever happened. "Sir, if we go to Kepler, we will be disobeying our patrol orders," his second-in-command warned. Ryan looked at the message again. 2,000 people. "Some orders are meant to be broken," he said. On the transport ship Pride of Texas, Colonel Frank Davis was training new Marines when the alert came through. His ship carried 500 of the toughest fighters in human space. They were supposed to be practicing landing operations on empty planets. "Change of plans," Frank announced to his Marines. "We are going to do some real fighting instead." The Marines cheered. They had been training for months without seeing any real action. Now they had a chance to save lives instead of just practicing. Meanwhile, the Wanderer raced through hyperspace toward Kepler. Amy sat in her command chair, watching the stars stream past. She had started something, but she did not know how big it would become. "Captain," Pete said from his station, "I am picking up a lot of radio traffic. Ships are talking to each other, sharing information about Kepler Station." Amy smiled for the first time in hours. "How many ships?" Pete listened to his equipment for a few minutes. "Hard to count exactly, but it sounds like dozens, maybe more." Engineer Carl Thompson shook his head in amazement. "I have never seen anything like this. Ships are coming from everywhere." Amy thought about the people trapped on Kepler Station. They probably thought they were going to die alone, forgotten by the rest of humanity. They had no idea that their desperate message was bringing together the largest rescue fleet in human history. "Pete, can you send a message back toward Kepler?" Amy asked. "I can try, but it will be very weak by the time it gets there. Send this. Help is coming. Do not give up. Humanity does not abandon its own." Pete sent the message, though they all knew it probably would not reach the station. But Amy felt better knowing they had tried. The Wanderer continued through hyperspace, leading a growing fleet of rescue ships toward Kepler. Behind them, more vessels joined the effort every hour. Captains called their friends. Crews volunteered for dangerous duty. Entire squadrons changed their missions without waiting for official orders. On a small passenger ship called Morning Star, Captain Nancy Adams was carrying families to a new colony. When she announced they were changing course to help with a HFY rescue, her passengers volunteered to help however they could. "We may not be soldiers," said one of the fathers, "but we can carry supplies, tend to wounded people, or do whatever needs doing." Dr. Helen Baker, who was traveling to become the doctor on a farming planet, began organizing medical supplies. "If there are injured people, we will need to be ready." The rescue fleet grew larger every hour. Ships that had never worked together before began talking on the radio, planning their approach to Kepler. Military captains shared tactical information with merchant sailors. Corporate security ships offered to work alongside Navy vessels. Amy watched the communication displays on her ship fill with more and more signals. What had started as one small exploration ship had become something much bigger. Humanity was coming together in a way she had never seen before. "Captain," said Navigation Officer Linda White, "we will reach Kepler in 6 hours." Amy nodded. In 6 hours, they would find out what was left of Kepler Station and its 2,000 defenders. But whatever they found, the people there would know they had not been forgotten. The message had been heard. Help was coming. And nothing in the galaxy would stop the storm that was building in human space. Admiral Karen White stood in the command center of her battleship Defiance, staring at the tactical display that showed dozens of ships moving through space. Each dot on the screen represented a vessel that had abandoned its original mission to join the rescue fleet heading toward Kepler Station. "Admiral, this is getting out of control," said Captain Steve Parker, who had joined the meeting by video link from his heavy cruiser Thunder. "We have merchant ships, pleasure craft, even a few old cargo haulers trying to join a military operation. Some of these captains have never seen combat." Karen looked at the list of ships on her computer screen. The names told a story of humanity coming together: the merchant vessel Lucky Star, the passenger liner Morning Star, the mining ship Deep Digger, and dozens of others. Mixed in with them were military ships like Parker's Thunder and the destroyer squadron led by Captain Nicole. "Hayes, I do not care if they have never fired a shot in anger," Karen said firmly. "Those are our people trapped on Kepler Station. Every ship that shows up is one more chance to bring them home alive." Colonel Frank Davis appeared on another screen, broadcasting from his marine transport Pride of Texas. Behind him, Karen could see rows of Marines checking their weapons and equipment. "Admiral, my boys are ready for whatever we find. But we need to know what we are walking into." Karen nodded and activated the main display. A map of the Kepler system appeared, showing the location of the research station and the surrounding person. Based on the last intelligence reports, Kepler Station is under siege by a Zephyrian fleet. We do not know how many ships, but it is probably a full battle group. "So we are looking at 12 to 15 enemy vessels," said Captain Nicole Hayes from her destroyer. "My ships can handle the smaller ones, but if they have battleships, we will deal with whatever we find," Karen interrupted. "The question is not whether we can win. The question is whether we can get those people out alive." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell's voice came through the speakers from his fast attack ship Spearhead. "Admiral, my ship is small, but we can create diversions. Hit-and-run attacks to draw their attention while the bigger ships move in." Karen smiled. This was why she loved working with smaller ship captains. They thought fast and were willing to take risks. "Good thinking, Bell. We will need every advantage we can get." The communication officer on the Defiance walked over to Karen with a new message. "Admiral, we just received word from the exploration ship Wanderer. Captain Rodriguez reports they will reach Kepler in 4 hours. She wants to know if she should wait for the main fleet." "Tell Rodriguez to be careful," Karen said. "Have her scout the system and report what she finds, but do not engage the enemy. We need to know what we are facing." Captain Bill Turner's merchant ship Lucky Star appeared on the communication screen. The old trader looked tired but determined. "Admiral, I know my ship is not much to look at, but we have medical supplies and spare parts. Whatever those people need, we can provide it." "Thank you, Captain Turner. Stay with the supply group and be ready to move in after we secure the area." More ships continued to join the fleet every hour. The passenger liner Hope's Dream, carrying 300 colonists, volunteered to help evacuate civilians from the station. The corporate security ship Guardian offered its Marines for boarding operations. Even a small pleasure yacht called Star Dancer, owned by a wealthy businessman, loaded itself with medical supplies and joined the rescue effort. Karen had never seen anything like it in 30 years of military service. Ships that normally competed with each other were now working together. Military vessels shared their tactical data with civilian captains. Merchant sailors offered to carry wounded soldiers. It was as if the entire human race had decided that some things were more important than profit, orders, or personal safety. "Admiral," said Commander Tony Anderson from his squadron of fast attack boats, "we have been thinking about how to approach this. If the Zephyrians have Kepler surrounded, we need to hit them from multiple directions at once." Karen studied the tactical display. Anderson was right. A direct assault would give the aliens time to destroy the station before the rescue ships could reach it. "What do you have in mind?" "My boats are fast and hard to detect. We can come in from the outer system while the main fleet approaches, from the front. Create confusion. Make them think the attack is coming from everywhere at once." Captain Susan Martinez, commanding a wing of fighter bombers, joined the conversation. "My fighters can support Anderson's attack. We can take out their sensors and communication equipment." Karen nodded approvingly. The plan was coming together naturally, with each captain contributing what their ship did best. This was not the carefully planned operation that military schools taught. This was something more basic and more powerful. Humans protecting their own. "All ships, this is Admiral White," she announced on the fleet-wide communication channel. "We will reach the Kepler system in 6 hours. I want all captains to understand what we are doing here. We are not fighting for territory or strategic advantage. We are fighting to save 2,000 human lives. Some of you are military, some are civilians. That does not matter now. What matters is that we bring our people home. The response from the fleet was immediate. Ship after ship confirmed their readiness to fight. Captains who had never met each other began working together like old friends. Engineers shared repair techniques. Doctors coordinated medical supplies. Weapons officers compared notes on fighting Zephyrian ships. On the mining ship Deep Digger, Captain Ruth Stone looked at her crew of asteroid miners. They were tough people who spent their lives in the dangerous business of extracting valuable metals from space rocks. Boys, we may not be soldiers, but we know how to work in dangerous places, and we know how to take care of our own. Her miners nodded agreement. They had loaded their ship with cutting tools that could be used as weapons and heavy equipment that could break through damaged station walls. If Kepler Station needed rescue workers, they were ready. The hospital ship Mercy, normally used to treat wounded soldiers near the front lines, changed course to join the fleet. Dr. Patricia Wells, the chief medical officer, began preparing for mass casualties. If there are 2,000 people on that station, some of them are going to be hurt. We need to be ready for anything. Captain Amy Rodriguez, still racing toward Kepler in her exploration ship Wanderer, received updates from the growing fleet behind her. She could hardly believe what her single message had started. What began as a desperate attempt to get help had become the largest volunteer rescue operation in human history. "Captain," said Pete Johnson from his sensor station, "I am picking up some interesting radio chatter from the direction of Kepler. The signals are very faint, but it sounds like there might still be fighting going on." Amy felt a mixture of hope and fear. If there was still fighting, it meant the station had not fallen yet, but it also meant that time was running out. "How much longer until we reach the system?" 2 hours, reported Navigation Officer Linda White. Amy activated her communication system and sent a message back to Admiral White. "This is Wanderer. We will reach Kepler in 2 hours. Detecting possible ongoing combat. Recommend main fleet increase speed if possible." The response came back quickly. "Acknowledged, Wanderer. Fleet is pushing engines to maximum. Hold position at system edge until we arrive. Do not attempt rescue alone." Amy understood the order, but she also understood that every minute counted. 2,000 people were fighting for their lives, and help was still hours away. She looked at her small crew, Pete, Linda, Carl, and a few others. They were explorers, not fighters, but they were also human, and that meant they did not abandon their own. "Crew meeting in 10 minutes, Amy announced. "We need to talk about what we are going to do when we reach Kepler." Behind them, the largest rescue fleet in human history continued to grow. Ships from every corner of human space were converging, on one point united by a simple message and an even simpler belief: humanity protects its own no matter the cost. Captain Amy Rodriguez felt her stomach drop as the Wanderer came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. What she saw on her screens made her hands shake. 12 Zephyrian ships hung in space around Kepler Station like vultures around a dying animal. The alien vessels were beautiful and terrible, their crystal hulls glowing with blue light against the black of space. "Pete, are you getting anything from the station?" Amy asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lieutenant Pete Johnson worked frantically at his sensor controls. "Very weak signals, Captain, but they are still transmitting. That means someone is still alive over there." Amy stared at the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were arranged in a perfect circle around the station, just close enough to keep it trapped but far enough away to avoid any desperate attacks. It was the kind of patient, methodical siege that the aliens were famous for. "Captain," said Engineer Carl Thompson, "those are some big ships. I count 2 battleships, 4 cruisers, and 6 destroyers. Our little exploration vessel would not last 10 seconds against them." Amy knew Carl was right. The Wanderer had a few small defensive guns, but they were meant for shooting asteroids, not fighting warships. Still, she could not just sit here and watch while people died. "Send a message to Admiral White," Amy ordered. "Tell her what we found and tell her to hurry." 3 hours later, space at the edge of the Kepler system began to fill with new arrivals. Ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace, military vessels, merchant ships, passenger liners, and craft that Amy had never seen before. The rescue fleet had arrived. Admiral Karen White's voice cut across all communication frequencies as her battleship Defiance took position at the center of the forming fleet. This is Admiral Karen White of the Terran Navy. All Zephyrian vessels in this system have 60 seconds to withdraw or face the consequences. The Zephyrian commander responded in perfect English, his voice cold and emotionless. You are outnumbered and outgunned, human. Your gesture is brave but pointless. Withdraw now and we will allow you to leave unharmed. Admiral White looked at her tactical display, which showed more human ships arriving every minute. Captain Steve Parker's heavy cruiser Thunder moved into position on her right. Captain Nicole Hayes brought her destroyer squadron in on the left. The fast attack boats commanded by Ryan Bell and Tony Anderson spread out like a swarm of angry wasps. Outnumbered? White smiled grimly. Count again. As if her words were a signal, the second wave of ships appeared. More vessels dropped out of hyperspace. The marine transport Pride of Texas, the hospital ship Mercy, dozens of merchant vessels loaded with supplies and volunteers. Even the small pleasure yacht Star Dancer took its place in the formation, its hull bristling with improvised weapons. On Kepler Station, Commander Jake Morrison watched his sensor displays in amazement. For weeks, the screens had shown only enemy ships. Now they were filled with friendly contacts, more ships than he had ever seen in one place. Sir, Communications Officer Danny Brooks called out, his voice breaking with emotion. I am receiving a transmission from Admiral White. Put it through, Jake ordered. Admiral White's voice filled the station's command center. Kepler Station, this is Admiral White. Sorry we are late to the party. How are you holding up over there? Jake felt tears in his eyes as he activated his microphone. Admiral, we have about 2,000 people here, mostly civilians. We are down to our last shield generator, but we are still fighting. Good to hear. We are going to get you out of there. Hold tight and be ready to evacuate wounded to our medical ships. The Zephyrian commander had been watching the human fleet grow larger and larger. What had started as a few dozen ships was now over 100 vessels of every size and type. This was not the organized military formation he had expected to fight. This was something chaotic and unpredictable. All ships, attack formation. The alien commander ordered his fleet, but the humans struck first. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell led his fast attack ship Spearhead and a dozen similar vessels in a lightning raid against the Zephyrian left flank. The small ships darted between the alien cruisers like schools of fish, firing torpedoes and immediately jumping away before the enemy could respond. At the same time, Commander Tony Anderson brought his attack boats in from the opposite direction. The Zephyrians found themselves under attack from multiple angles, their carefully planned formation beginning to break apart. Captain Susan Martinez led her fighter bombers in a screaming dive toward the Zephyrian flagship. Her pilots had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not come back, but they also knew that 2,000 lives depended on their courage. This is Phoenix Squadron, Susan announced on the radio as her fighters streaked past the station's shields. We are going after their command ship. All other units hit them while they are looking at us. The Zephyrian battleships turned their massive guns toward the incoming fighters, filling space with deadly energy beams. 3 human fighters exploded in balls of fire, but the rest kept coming. Susan's bomber released its full load of torpedoes, at point-blank range before spinning away from the alien ship's return fire. Admiral White watched the battle develop on her screens. The Zephyrians were good fighters, but they were used to facing organized military fleets that followed predictable patterns. The human rescue fleet was anything but predictable. Captain Bill Turner, commanding the merchant ship Lucky Star, did something no military manual would ever recommend. He flew his cargo vessel straight at a Zephyrian cruiser, using his ship's heavy construction to ram the alien vessel's weapon systems. The impact destroyed both ships, but Turner and his crew had already evacuated to escape pods. For Kepler, "Station!" Turner shouted over the radio as his ship struck the enemy cruiser. The cry was taken up by other ships across the fleet. This was not about military strategy or territorial gain. This was about saving human lives, and every person in the rescue fleet was willing to die for that cause. Colonel Frank Davis watched the space battle from his marine transport Pride of Texas, His 500 Marines were ready for boarding actions, but first the fleet had to break through the Zephyrian defenses. "Colonel," his aide reported, "Admiral White is asking if we can get Marines aboard that damaged cruiser." Frank looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian ship that had been rammed by Turner's merchant vessel was still intact, but badly damaged. If his Marines could capture it, they would have a foothold in the enemy formation. "Tell the Admiral we are on our way," Frank ordered. "Marines, saddle up. We are going to take an alien ship." The Pride of Texas accelerated toward the damaged cruiser, its hull reinforced for exactly this kind of dangerous mission. Marine landing craft launched from the transport's belly, racing toward the wounded Zephyrian vessel. Meanwhile, the hospital ship Mercy moved carefully through the battle zone, its white hull marked with large red crosses. Dr. Patricia Wells and her medical team were already treating wounded from the damaged human ships, working frantically to save as many lives as possible. On Kepler Station, Dr. Lisa Campbell watched the battle through the observation windows. Explosions lit up space like deadly fireworks as human and alien ships fought desperately around the station. "Commander Morrison," she called out, "the Zephyrians are pulling back from our sector. I think the rescue fleet is winning." Jake looked at his tactical display. The alien ships were indeed falling back, their perfect siege formation broken by the chaotic human attack. But he also saw that several human vessels had been destroyed, their crews dying to save people they had never met. "All stations, prepare for evacuation," Jake announced throughout the station. "Medical teams, get the wounded ready for transport. Everyone else, pack only essential items. We are going home." The battle continued to rage around Kepler Station, but for the first time in weeks, the humans trapped inside had hope. Help had come, brought by ordinary people who refused to let their fellow humans die alone in the darkness of space. The Zephyrian fleet commander stared at his tactical displays in growing confusion. His ships had fought against human military forces many times before, and he understood their patterns. Human fleets usually attacked in organized formations, with clear battle lines and predictable movements. This chaotic swarm of ships made no sense to him. Every time his weapons officers tried to target the larger human vessels, smaller ships would appear from unexpected directions. When his cruisers moved to intercept the human destroyers, merchant ships would ram his flanks. When his fighters engaged the human bombers, civilian craft would somehow end up in the middle of the battle, disrupting his carefully planned maneuvers. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "the humans have Marines aboard the cruiser Bright Edge. Our crew is fighting them in the corridors, but the ship is lost." The Zephyrian commander watched helplessly as Colonel Frank Davis and his Marines took control of the damaged cruiser. Human soldiers were now inside his defensive formation, attacking his ships from within. This had never happened in any previous battle. "All ships, fall back to secondary positions," he ordered reluctantly. But Admiral Karen White was not about to let the aliens regroup. She had seen how the Zephyrians fought. They liked organized battles with clear rules. The human rescue fleet was giving them exactly the opposite. "All vessels maintain pressure," she broadcast to the entire fleet. "Do not let them establish new firing positions." Captain Nicole Hayes brought her destroyer squadron racing past the retreating Zephyrian ships, her guns firing continuously. Her destroyers were fast and maneuverable, perfect for harassing the larger alien vessels. "This is Sword Squadron," she announced. "We are keeping them busy while the evacuation ships move in." The hospital ship Mercy was already approaching Kepler Station, its landing bays open to receive wounded civilians. Dr. Patricia Wells had turned the entire ship into one giant emergency room, with medical teams standing by to treat everything, from burns to broken bones. On the station, Commander Jake Morrison coordinated the evacuation with military precision. Despite being under siege for weeks, his people moved quickly and efficiently. Families gathered their children and essential belongings. Engineers shut down critical systems to prevent explosions. Medical teams prepared the most seriously injured for transport. "Commander," Dr. Lisa Campbell reported, "we have 300 wounded who need immediate medical attention. The rest of our people are ready to go." Jake nodded and activated the station-wide communication system. "All civilians to evacuation points. Priority goes to children, elderly, and wounded. Everyone else stay calm and follow the evacuation officers." Outside, the battle continued with increasing intensity. Captain Steve Parker's heavy cruiser Thunder engaged two Zephyrian battleships at close range, trading massive blasts of energy that lit up space like miniature suns. Parker's ship was taking heavy damage, but he held his position to cover the evacuation ships. "Thunder to all vessels," Parker broadcast through gritted teeth as his ship shook under enemy fire. "I can hold these big boys for another 10 minutes, maybe 15. Get those people out of there." The merchant captain Bill Turner, now commanding an escape pod after his ship was destroyed, watched other civilian vessels continue the fight. The passenger liner Morning Star had converted its cargo bays into refugee shelters and was moving toward the station despite enemy fire. "This is Captain Nancy Adams of the Morning Star," came the transmission. "We have room for 500 civilians coming in on the station's port side." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell's fast attack ship Spearhead darted between the larger vessels like a deadly hummingbird. His ship was too small to carry many evacuees, but it was perfect for attacking the Zephyrian ships that tried to target the rescue vessels. "Spearhead to evacuation fleet," Ryan called out as he fired torpedoes at an alien destroyer. "I see 3 Zephyrian ships trying to break through to the station, moving to intercept." The Zephyrian commander realized that his fleet was not just losing the battle. They were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to fight by any known rules. Human ships were sacrificing themselves to save others. Civilian vessels were attacking military targets. Wounded ships continued, fighting instead of retreating. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "the human admiral is sending us a message. Put it through." Admiral White's voice filled the Zephyrian command bridge. "Zephyrian commander, this is your final warning. Withdraw your ships now or we will destroy every one of them." The alien commander looked at his tactical display. He had started the battle with 12 ships. Now he had 9, and several of those were badly damaged. The human fleet, meanwhile, seemed to grow larger every time he looked at it. More ships kept arriving, some to fight, others to help with the evacuation. "Human admiral," he replied, "you have fought well, but you cannot save everyone. Even if you defeat us, more of our fleets will come." "Maybe," White responded. "But today, right now, we are saving these people, and that is enough." The Zephyrian commander made his decision. His species valued survival above honor, efficiency above courage. This chaotic human response was costing him too many ships for too little gain. "All vessels, withdraw to hyperspace," he ordered. One by one, the remaining Zephyrian ships began jumping away from the battle. Their commander had learned something important about humans that day. They were at their most dangerous when they were protecting their own. Captain Amy Rodriguez, still aboard the Wanderer, watched the alien ships disappear from her sensors. The small exploration vessel that had started this entire rescue effort was now helping coordinate the evacuation, using her advanced communication equipment to manage the flow of refugees between ships. "Captain," Pete Johnson reported from his station, "the last Zephyrian ship just jumped to hyperspace. The system is clear." Amy felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had done it. Against impossible odds, the human rescue fleet had driven off a superior enemy force and saved 2,000 lives. On Kepler Station, Commander Jake Morrison stood in the command center as the last group of civilians boarded evacuation ships. The station was almost empty now, its corridors echoing with the footsteps of the final security teams. "Sir," Danny Brooks called out, "Admiral White wants to speak with you." Jake activated his communication system one last time from the station that had been his home and responsibility for so long. "Commander Morrison," Admiral White's voice came through clearly. "Outstanding job holding out against those odds. Are you ready to come home?" Jake looked around the command center where he and his people had fought for their lives for 3 weeks. Soon it would be empty, just another abandoned station in the vast darkness of space. But the people who had lived and worked here were safe. That was what mattered. "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied. "We are ready." An hour later, the last human ship left the Kepler system. The rescue fleet scattered back to their original missions, their crews carrying stories of the greatest rescue operation in human history. The merchant ships returned to their cargo runs, The military vessels went back to fighting the war. The civilian craft headed home to their families. But something had changed in human space that day. Word spread quickly about what had happened. At Kepler, how a single distress call had brought together hundreds of ships and thousands of people united by one simple belief: humanity protects its own. Captain Amy Rodriguez sat in her command chair aboard the Wanderer as they returned to deep space exploration. Her ship's communication logs showed messages from all over human space. Thank you notes from the rescued civilians, commendations from Fleet Command, and requests from other exploration teams to share her sensor techniques. But the message that meant the most came from a little girl named Amy, the same child who had asked Commander Morrison when the good spaceships were coming. The message was simple and written in a child's handwriting. Thank you for bringing the good spaceships to save us. Amy Rodriguez smiled and filed the message in her personal records. Someday when people asked her why humans always seem to win impossible battles, she would show them that message. It contained the secret that no alien species had ever understood. Humans do not fight for territory or resources or glory. They fight for each other. And when humans fight for each other, they become something more powerful than any weapon, more unstoppable than any fleet. They become the storm that sweeps away anyone foolish enough to threaten their own.